Hello viewers, and we've got an absolute treat today. He's been working me hard all day. We've got Gareth here from Glasgow's Epochal. Thanks for the workout today, mate.
Very welcome, thanks for the shift.
Not a problem, anytime. So it was a recommendation for one of the viewers, Fiona McPherson, so thanks to Fiona. Anyone else that has any recommendations, get them up online in the comments, and make sure that there's no work involved, because there was a wee bit of work involved in this one today, but it was very enjoyable, Gareth. So before we hear about Epochal Brewery and taste one of your beers, which is going to be of Myces And Men, which we're really looking forward to, can you just tell us a wee bit about yourself, Gareth, your background, how you get into beer or brewing, that kind of stuff?
Aye. So I got into craft beer quite young. I think I was about 17. I've got memories of going to taking bottles of Rochefort 10 to house parties in 6th year high school, which I got from a wee deli in the town I grew up in, a wee Peckham's.
Uh-huh.
So I used to go and buy lunch in there in school and saw on the shelves all these very fancy looking bottles of Belgian beer, and as soon as I got a chance to drink them, that was me kind of hooked. So that was beer. A few years later I started home brewing, partly just to learn more and partly to get access to styles that were difficult to get back then. You know, things like really hoppy American pale ales or big imperial stouts were not very easy to get in 2005, so I just made my own versions, and from there became interested in funky, weird fermentation, and that was what kind of started me on the journey to here. I used to be an academic. I used to be a lecturer at Glasgow Uni in philosophy, and then decided to make the jump to start my own brewery a few years ago. Left to get to work in a couple of local breweries out of town in Drygate until I felt ready to kick off all this, which I did end of last year. I kind of took this place on, brewed my first beers at the beginning of this year, released them in June, so a couple of months, 3 months-ish since the first beers came out.
No, it's brilliant. That is brilliant. And regular viewers, or if you're on Instagram, you know we're big fans of Epochal. You've been making some big waves, despite the fact you've only been around for such a short period. But I don't want to kind of spoil things. I'd like you to tell us what is Epochal Brewery? What do you do here?
I make beers that have the kind of complex flavours that you can only get by aging and fermenting a beer in barrels with the kind of weird microbes that like to live in there, because you just get these flavours that you can't get in any other way. And usually when people do this, they do it in the Belgian tradition. They're drawing on Belgian farmhouse brewing or something like that. And I was just sort of conscious that I wasn't Belgian or a farmer or anything like that, so I wanted to find a way of doing it that felt authentic to me. And there is this big Scottish tradition of doing these kind of wood-aged beers, and the guys that made them all lived in Glasgow or Edinburgh. They weren't farmers, they were brewers. That tradition just it just clicked with me more than thinking of myself as a farmhouse brewer did. And so, you know, they were all interested in brewing science, which I'm a big nerd about as well. So that all just kind of came together, and Epochal was my attempt to kind of explore that tradition and make modern beers, I think, but beers that have a past behind them that's quite Scottish, that connects to where I am and where I'm from.
Fantastic. So we are in the north of Glasgow, viewers, so they've actually let me over the other side of the river here. I don't want you phoning the North Glasgow police, you might get into trouble here, but obviously you're based North Central Glasgow, surrounded by history here. Can you just tell us a wee bit about where you're based, because there is a few interesting stories.
Yeah, so we're on the canal. You can't see it, but just through the wall is the actual canal itself, and water sports. People water skiing up and down, and the canal in one direction goes all the way to Edinburgh, and the other direction goes all the way to Greenwich. Yeah. So it's right on that canal, and there's a lot of kind of brewing history around here. Just round the corner was a brewery, the Great Canal Brewery, that used to make wood-aged beer in the kind of 1800s and things, and there used to be a big, huge distillery round about here as well. So it's an area that's got a big history of making booze.
Epochal, the name Epochal, Epochal, I've heard all sorts of Epochal. So why well, is there a right way of pronouncing it?
There's a few, I mean I don't like how people pronounce it. I say Epochal, but say what you like. It came from, there's this kind of mad German actor called Klaus Kinski, do you know this guy? Klaus Kinski. I heard that.
Yes, okay, yeah.
So yeah, it's a completely mad actor and complete megalomaniac, and he was there's a story of him being interviewed by a theatre critic who is talking about a small performances and says things like, oh, it's excellent, it's outstanding. And he is so incensed by this that he throws a fit, throws his potatoes at this guy, because they're having dinner, so he throws his potatoes at him and says, I was not excellent, I was not outstanding, I was epochal, I was monumental. So me and my mates used to go around calling things epochal after reading this story. So it was partly that, but partly that, like, for something to be epochal is for it to define an epoch, a period of time, and being interested in all these old beers, it felt like, you know, there was a period that was defined by pale ales or by porters, and I was kind of doing my versions of these styles, which in that sense are epochal styles. So it kind of felt like, so I just kind of liked the word, but it felt like it fit with what I was doing as well. So.
Well, it kind of dovetails in nicely to the next question, and I'm scared to even mention it because I'm scared that I really am. Do you deliberately pick names that are hard to pronounce, like Siphonaptera?
Nice, yeah. That's it.
I've been practicing.
Perfect.
Yeah, because seriously though, it does kind of hark back to, you kind of touched on about the history of the beers, and it's almost like medieval-like, or even some Latin style. What's the kind of story behind that? And
it's just, I like to pick names that have some kind of resonance for me with stuff I'm interested in, usually something to do with beer or something to do with philosophy, and I just kind of pick things that I think are a bit interesting or that seem kind of neat to me. I mean, Siphonaptera is pushing it, I think, on pronounceability, but the wee story behind the poem is just too good to miss. So yeah, it's just kind of aiming for things that are a bit unique and that kind of mean something to me and that I think sound good. That have a wee bit of just, even if you don't get the reference, they still just kind of sound nice. Is the basic goal.
Well, it's definitely, it's a good wee story behind it. It's an absolute cracking beer as well. We just had one before we started after the shift, and it was a stunner. So yeah, you've been trading since June, as we kind of touched on earlier on. So in May, June, I know you'd had the brews and well planned before that, but how has it been generally for you, would you say?
It's been amazing. It's been incredibly busy. I knew it was going to be busy, but it's even busier than I thought it would be. But it's been great. The amount of support has been really astonishing and lovely, and especially I've noticed a lot of support from Glasgow. Like I feel like people have been buying. I mean, this is weird kind of niche beer, and it's been going to local craft beer shops, and they've been selling out just straight away from local people wanting to drink it, which is just really nice to me. It's not something that you can bet on with making unusual beer, but that's been really lovely. So there's been a lot of support and a lot of people kind of getting what I'm up to, which has been.
Well, what I would say of yours is we'll be linking to Gareth's socials all throughout it. We'll be linking where you can purchase the beers, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to apologise for it. We're going to basically spam Gareth's details. Obviously, get in contact. He's got fantastic social media. His description of the beer is almost tongue-in-cheek, but yet also professor-esque, if that's a word, when his description of it. And I'm not surprised you're getting a lot of support from Glasgow, because that is a good product. Also glad to get a lot of support, obviously, for friends and family and things like that as well. Helping out, you know, podcasters coming up, having to do the graft, do the dirty work and all that.
He's very good at bottling. You should, any brewers that business in future, get a wee shift off him.
But listen, any time I enjoyed it today, that's my exercise for the week. So before we open Myces And Men, one of your latest beers, can you give us might have to pause that, listen, it's fine, don't say that. But before we open up Myces And Men, which is the latest brew here from Gareth, can you give us the viewers a kind of brief description of the beer?
Yeah. So it's a pale ale, a style I've brewed a fair bit of now, sort of my own version of 19th century Scottish pale ales. So this one is brewed with Myces Otter, which is one of my favourite kinds of malted barley, quite a special kind. And this one is a mixture of extra pale Myces Otter and a wee bit of full colour Myces Otter, so it gives you this quite nice golden colour, very nice to look at. And it's hopped with Fuggles and Goldens, which are kind of archetypal boring old man hops, but these are from Brook House, which is a grower in Herefordshire who are really looking after their hops, processing them really nicely, and so you get a lot of intensity of flavours out of these kind of varieties. So combining these old varieties in this very good quality form with the kind of processes I use for barrel fermentation and things gives you a really kind of complex, punchy beer that isn't in the least boring or old manish.
Well, you've whetted my appetite. Let's get this bad boy opened. Borrow you. Even the bottle opener's really an old school job.
Oh, that's William Younger, 1920s.
Wow. That is a fantastic colour, firstly, I can just say that.
It's a really nice goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you use the full colour stuff, it's kind of ambery. If you use the extra pale stuff, it's sort of strong. If you use a mixture, then you get this nice, very nice golden colour.
I'm just going to put it right up to the camera so as we can see that. Now, I'm not going to make an arse of myself here, Gareth, because I don't have the vernacular to describe it, but firstly, can we start with the aroma there?
Yeah, so it smells, there's a lot going on in the aroma. So to me, I can smell the primary fermentation, which is one of the things that gives it a lot of fruit. So I smell in there a sort of stewed pear, wee bit of apricot jam kind of character that comes from that first fermentation. And then very clearly I can smell the secondary fermentation, so that's in the wood, the breath of the Myces, very funky, earthy, sort of a musky quality. And also there's a lot of those hops in there, and actually more than the Goldings, I think the Fuggles is what dominates this, and it's a really cool, weird hop if you add a lot of it. It's really, it's almost funky on its own. It's weird to say a hop is funky, but it almost smells like Brett, the hop. So yeah, just a really earthy, spicy sort of quality to the hop that I think is really unusual.
I agree with you.
Tasty.
The colour, you've touched on it already. It really is this is now, what, 4 or 5 weeks would it be? In fact, no, this is fresh, isn't it? This is...
age-wise, I brewed it months ago, but because it goes, the whole process is, there's the open fermentation, and then a wee rest in a conditioning tank, and then it goes into wood, and then it goes into bottle, and then I release it. And I released this when did I release this? A couple of weeks ago?
It was a couple of weeks ago.
So it's a couple of weeks extra after the release.
We did kind of off camera, I did mention what I really liked with your beers in general is if you hold the bottle up, to the light, you can almost see through them, despite the fact you're using really dark bottles, and that is just so clear. Yeah,
there's a wee bit of condensation there that's kind of fogging the glass, but it is quite clear, and it's just time. The beer just sits for a bit and clears up.
The head as well is just so clean, isn't it? There's no
bit of lacing.
It's just phenomenal. So can we try this? Cheers, man.
It's again a lot of that red funk, a lot of Fuggles on the palate, really saturated with Fuggles actually, really earthy, leafy kind of hop character. It is very dry, as all my pale ales are, pretty much bone dry, but with still a lot of mouthfeel, a lot of which just comes from the hops. I think if you add a lot of them and give it a lot of bitterness, which this has, it gives you a bit of kind of structure, a bit of mouthfeel, and stops it feeling. It certainly doesn't seem watery, even though it's absolutely bone.
It's so dry. We did, I know off camera I had said I'd used the word woody, which would probably be wrong, but there's definitely a lot of funk going on it. But what I love is that after all that funk goes all around your mouth, it's hitting you absolutely everywhere, it just settles down, and it's just a classic pale ale at the end of it. And it's very complex, I think. But then it just ends with that, and I think that's a cracker.
That's what I like about the style, is that it kind of, by doing this fermentation, you can layer up all this complexity, but at base it is just a dry pale ale, so it combines the complexity with that drinkability in a way that to me is really nice and easy to drink, despite all the kind of weird funky.
Well, normally I would judge the beer, but I'm not going to do that. I did say I wasn't going to judge the beer. We'll do a separate video when you get a bottle of it to Brenny and we can do a right judgment. But what I'll say is it's going to score very, very highly with us. Without giving away any of the secrets, you have kind of touched on this as well.
Yep.
The ingredients you've used already and the processes used. Now this is probably going to open up a can of worms, because I know you're professor-esque. In fact, I'm going to stop using the word professor-esque. From now on, you are the professor, okay, of fermentology. Right, so you are a bit of a professor of fermentology, if you don't mind me saying. So in terms of the processes, you've kind of touched on already. I don't even know what the question is, but can you tell us about the process involved in this one?
So the first thing is, can we point that at the fermenters to show people?
Of course we can.
So as you can see maybe one of the beers in the fermenters at the back is kind of climbing out the fermenter.
Oh yeah.
So that's the open fermenters. That's step one. So the beer ferments in there, and they're lidded, but they're not pressure sealed. So you get a lot of. It's very gentle to the beer. You get a lot of fruit flavour and things.
Wow! Look at that. Well, earlier on, that was you described it as the rocky stage, and it wasn't as high as that.
No, it's kicking off.
Wow!
So that's step one, and then it goes into that little tank, the little yellow tank there for about a week, and that kind of helps clean some of the yeast out of the beer, which makes it taste a bit more, a bit cleaner after its barrel fermentation. So it then goes into wood and spends some amount of time in there. That will vary hugely with the beer. Some might be in there for 6 weeks, some might be in for 18 months. It just depends on what suits the particular beer. And then, as you experienced, we bottle it or we keg it, and it gets another kind of fermentation and maturation in the bottles, and that kind of carbonates it and helps it mature a bit more and come together.
And there's the proof. I think it was about 1,250 bottles yours.
Something like that. That sounds about right. Yeah.
But what I liked is that you did use the vessel twice in the process.
Yeah.
And you picked these up yourself on eBay as well, which is fantastic. It's recycling. It's upcycling.
Yeah, so that's 1950s that was made, so it's well used.
Superb. Well, thanks to Gareth there for that wee impromptu tour. It was really good. I love the fact that yeast is just not boiling away, but it's living, it's breathing in it, and it's smell. I wish you could smell it, because it just smells sensational. So it does. So I suppose another question is, where can you buy your beers? Because I noticed you can't buy them here.
Yeah, I don't have a license to sell direct yet, unfortunately. Hopefully mid-November for that. In the meantime, most of the craft beer places in Glasgow and Edinburgh have taken it. There are also some distributors, Rimsdale, New Wave, James Clay, Beer Gonzo, have all taken it. So anywhere that buys their beer from them. Basically, if you have a place you would like to stock it, just tell them to contact me or one of the distributors. Also
the worldwide scope of Bilko Brenny's podcast, I'm sure your email will be bulging. So the one thing we kind of discussed this today, and I have to say here, it's been the reason I'm calling him the professor is because he's shared his knowledge today, and it's opened my eyes massively. As has other podcasts we've done, but in particular today, because obviously you're concentrating exclusively barrel fermentation and pale ales as well, which, by the way, Gareth, I didn't used to like pale ales until about 6 months ago. But I've never tasted one as good as that, I won't say that. But the barrel fermentation process, one of the things that I like about it is that it gives a lot of scope over the years to, that'll be the north side police coming to get me, by the way, but it gives a lot of scope to change flavour. One of the things I love about your beers is it can be a bit of an investment. I mean, the best before date can be like 20-25. Ethereal substances, infinite, so they're like an investment. So can you tell how the flavour is going to change by the processes and the hops that you've used? Can you actually tell that? Sort of.
So if you've used them a lot, you know the kind of rough direction things will go. So if you're familiar with the cultures and you've used the hop varieties and stuff, you might have an idea of the direction, but really what you're doing when you're making this beer, when you're making beer this way, is you're giving up a degree of control and letting these microbes just go, in the hopes that they're going to give you extra complexity, by doing that, by not being too exerting too direct control over which microbes are there and what they're doing. So inevitably that just leads to a certain amount of unpredictability and the odd dodgy batch that you pour down the drain. I mean, hopefully not too many of those, but so there isn't predictability there, and that's just something that you have to, if you're making beer this way, you just embrace that and say, it gives a beer quite a singular sort of nature. I mean, the fact that it changes in the bottle, even like you might buy that one batch of beer and drink it at one time, and even if you have more bottles from that batch, it might never taste like that again. If you have it again in 6 months, it'll be different. So there's something quite nice about that and quite alive about it, that it changes in the bottle.
Agreed.
In that sort of way.
Agreed. I was saying to you as well, the ethereal substances. When we purchased that at first, and I went round to visit a friend, I said, a big sour fan, this guy. I said, you like sour, you'll like this. It's not really a sour beer, but you're going to love this. Blew him away, but it had changed so much on even in the 4-week period where we bought it. Even the Cypher Naptera, what you kindly shared today, that's really kind of matured as well, and it's got a different taste. It's just a great, and I think you're doing yourself a wee bit down a wee bit there. I think you do know what it's going to be like. I don't think you're going to be one of these guys that will just take the credit if it works. I think you know it's going to work. So I'm looking forward to trying the beers again in years to come. And seeing actually what happens.
Me too. I mean, I'm drinking them. I'm drinking them regularly. It's nice to see. I mean, it feels like I've been doing this for ages, but it's not been that long since Ethereal Substances was released, and it is now very, very different to the way it was when it came out, and it will be different again by Christmas and different again next summer. So it's a nice evolution to see.
It's leading in nicely. We have, at the end of the day, this is real hardcore science in full effect here. And you're carrying it out, and this is not stuff. As a young kind of novice brewer, this is not stuff that I would even consider doing. How have you learned about this? How do you learn about this kind of stuff?
Well, maybe because of my academic background, I have a tendency to be a wee bit obsessive and to read a lot about things. So I've always read a lot about beer. I've been into it for quite a long time, and I've combined that with a lot of experimentation as a home brewer, and then later in my own brewery.
Is there any books at all that you can maybe recommend to any of yours?
There's loads. Well, that's one of my favourite books. Alright, so one that I've read recently that I really like is by a guy called Sykes.
Okay.
So the first edition of this book was 1890s, I think.
Wow.
And so this is back at a time where, when you're brewing, the money was in funk, the money was in barrel aged beer. So if you buy a professional brewing textbook, in this time, it's about funk. It's about making, wood aged pale ales and porters and stuff. And so this book is like a really sophisticated treatment, and I don't think there's been a better one since. There's my hot take for the day. Is that no one, even now, we still haven't bettered that book, and you can get it for free in PDF off the internet because it's out of copyright.
Fantastic. There we go.
Old PDFs and old brewing textbooks. That's where
brilliant.
The juice.
So we'll see if we can. I don't know if we've got linking to a direct link to that. Would be morally right. But if you've watched so far, that's a great wee tidbit there. Now there is a couple of viewers' questions. Now I know because I've been helping you do it all day today, and but when I turned up, I did kind of give you the heads up on this question. And it was for the Trade Balls Appreciation Society. They were asking if you'll be sticking to farmhouse funk, or have you got plans to branch out into other styles, such as imperial stouts, or IPAs, porters, anything like that?
Yeah. So I'm planning to do all kinds of stuff. It'll still be funk. So everything will go through all of the house cultures, all these kind of fermentation processes, because that's what the brewery is.
Yeah.
But I will be using that to explore a whole bunch of different styles, and it's just because it's a new brewery. The stuff that gets released is the stuff that's ready first, so some of the styles just take longer. So there'll be a porter come out next month. That's going to be a cool one, and there'll be Scotch ales. There'll be imperial stouts. So I love one of my old favourite beers was Courage Russian Imperial Stout. You can still find kind of slightly fusty, dodgy old bottles on eBay, but that's a really bready Imperial Stout. I mean, the original Imperial Stouts were all super funky, made in more or less this way. So yeah, I'm a big fan of those things. Hopefully I'll brew lots of them. So yeah, you'll start to see as time goes on, the styles that I do will expand.
I think that's great, and I think make sure you sign up to Gareth's socials. He does like a good description, and if you do that, he's actually really good. He lets you know in advance, normally just before they're hitting the shops as well. I've noticed that. So you keep your eyes out for that. Make sure you get signed up to his Instagram. This question, I've been looking forward to this question. I told you I was going to ask it, and I'm interested to find out. Could I predict one? I'm not going to predict one, but if you only had one beer to drink for the rest of your life, and it cannot be one of your own, right? What would it be?
I'm allowed two. You said I could have two.
You can have two as soon as you pass through. Right.
I think I'm going to pick Taras Bilba by De La Seine Brewery. So De La Seine is a brewery based in Brussels, and the kind of guy behind it is Van de Baats, who's known for writing that book about saisons, farmhouse ales. A lot of people know that book. So he is a really good brewer and makes these absolutely beautiful pale ales. Really hoppy, really bitter, really dry, and just using like really nice quality European hops. And they're real brewers' beers. They're just absolutely perfectly executed. And Taras Bilba was probably their most kind of iconic beer. It's 4.5% alcohol, so quite light and just absolutely delicious. The other one I would pick would be, I think, Arabier by the Dollar Brewers, if you know this brewery. So they're based in Essen in Belgium, and they're another one. So they've been a favourite of mine for a long time, and they inspire to some degree what I do. They have their own house cultures. They do open fermentation. They do quite a lot of wood fermentation, and Arabier is one of my favourite beers they do. It's another quite heavily hopped, quite bitter but very finely balanced, really characterful beer with loads of fermentation character. You know, as soon as you smell it, you know it's a beer from them because it's just got that distinctive kind of personality that I like with beer. So.
Well, there we go, there's two. I'll try and get the links up to those as well. I have to say, just all the beers you've tried, I mean, I've tried 5 now of the 6 you've had. Plus I actually get a drop of the porter when wee spillage earlier on, but you do have a distinctive style already, and I cannot wait to see what you're going to be doing next. Is there any other breweries that you've not already mentioned, locally or within the UK, that have inspired you, or you would just like to mention that you think are putting out any good stuff?
Yeah, locally, Phil at Simple Things Fermentations does some lovely stuff. Kieran at Acid Brewing Cartel, Chris at Dead End Brewing in Edinburgh, Newbarns Brewery are great, I think. The Holy Goat guys in Dundee, I think are cool, they're doing some good stuff. And further afield, I love Burning Sky, I like almost everything they do, I think. It's the Kernels Funk, I think is fantastic. I mean, as all their stuff is just lovely balance, all of it. Mills do great stuff too. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff around the UK at the moment.
No, that's good.
The quality, I think, is. I mean, like I said, I've been into craft beer for ages, and there's no question that the quality now is so much higher than it's ever been, which makes it harder to be a brewer. But it's as a drinker, it's.
Well, it benefits the consumer when there's a lot of competition, and I love the fact you've named a lot of the guys. A couple of them have been on the show, but I love the fact you've named them because we seem to be developing a wee bit of a scene here in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Scotland in general, and to the point of people like Burning Sky, I think they know us. They know Glasgow now. They know the Scottish brewers now. And you're hopefully going to continue that tradition. So, what next? What would be next for you? What's the next step for you?
I'd like to get a web shop with some fancy glassware. I'm excited to get some Epochal glasses. Anyone that knows me knows that I have a bit of a penchant
and a healthy obsession for glassware.
So I'm looking forward to getting some of those. I would love to have a tap room. That's something that I'm looking at. Sorting out in time for next summer, so fingers crossed the licensing God's up kind. But yeah, I like a wee bit of space where I can serve beer to people and talk to them about it and do wee tours and that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm focused on right now, just that and dialing in the beer quality. I think it's all moving in the right direction. I'm feeling much more comfortable with all the stuff I'm doing, and I feel like the beers are, getting better and going the way they should be. So yeah, just a few more beer styles coming out, the beer steadily improving, and hopefully tap room things on the rise.
That would be amazing. Ideal position for a tap room, has to be said. Did you get any beer left?
I think I drank almost.
Oh, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to have to do a cheers myself. You can just kid on, you've got some beers left. So all remains to say, I can have some more. All remains to be said for this stage of the podcast is thanks very much, Gareth, for coming on the show. And a big cheers. Big cheers. Cheers. We're back already, viewers. So there's a wee bonus brew. Gareth was kind enough to share the Green Label, which is another one of his latest beers. Can you tell us a wee bit about this one, Gareth?
Yeah, so it's funny, this one is actually, in terms of recipe, really close to of Myces And Men, but it tastes totally different. So the malt in this is Maris Otter again. Again, it's a mix of the extra pale stuff and the normal colour stuff to give you more or less the same kind of golden colour.
Yeah.
In terms of hops, it's Goldings again, so the Myces And Men was Goldings, but it's done a wee bit differently. So what I wanted was I really like the bitterness you get from Goldings. It's got this nice kind of peppery sort of bitterness that gives it a nice mouthfeel. So I wanted to take that and then to add some nice aromatic American hops on top of it. So Centennial is one of my favourite US hops. It's just a real classic West Coast IPA hop. So what I did was I just added all the Goldings in the boil, which is where it gives you that bitterness and a lot of the flavour. And then the Centennial was a dry hop, so adding it at the end and really primarily as an aroma thing. And so what you get on the nose, and it's a difference in barrels, so these are slightly more floral, more delicate.
You can tell it's more floral.
Barrels.
Yeah.
so that there's a lot of fruit and a lot of flowers on the nose there. I think there's a really pineapple-y note in there. That's what happens when you feed Brettanomyces centennial. It makes these nice pineapple smells. So yeah, it's a really aromatic again, but in a much lighter kind of way and a bit more fruity. And then on the palate, again dry and stuff, but quite a rich, earthy, peppery sort of a bitterness. So it's funny that like the only difference really between this being the last one is bubbles have been swapped for centennial.
Yeah.
And the slight difference in fermentation character.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's
Is it
totally
put in the same barrel? Type of
no,
barrel?
so
Different barrel as well?
different. Well, the same kind of barrel, but different microbes live in it.
Yeah.
Because all the barrels are sort of subtly different in the flavours they produce. That's one of the reasons to use them, is that you end up with this little microclimate in each one, and then you can blend them and kind of choose the flavours you want to put together. So the ones in this I picked because they're quite floral, quite fruity, whereas the Myces And Men ones are a bit more assertively funky.
Well, that's why I've got Gareth here to describe the beer, because I would have just said it's floral on the taste, or you've just tasted it with the colour, the head, it's just, how, can't believe, like, it just pours and holds it, and perfect, sorry man, let's get this, the first time I've tried this, cheers. It's almost like a hint of elderberry or something on there.
Yeah. Elderflower.
Elderflower, that's it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think that's kind of Goldens and Brett Funk together is giving you that kind
That's
of.
cracking. I'm going to have to have a big sip of this. They do kind of go hand in hand, these two beers, the bar, they kind of come together quite nicely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's stunning. I'm tempted to score this.
Oh, yeah?
I'm not going to though.